when I wait and wait until finally everyone's ready. And you guys are close. I'd probably be the gold or silver on this. So welcome to the conference. We're glad that everyone could make it today. This session is followed by a business meeting, which typically goes much, much shorter than the time allotted. So we're not under pressure to finish up very quickly. So that's very good. You can continue if you would like to refill on coffee or something. That's fine. We're casual about that. We're going to start today with the welcome from our MMA president, Roscoe Hightower.
All right, welcome everyone to our brunch, and we'd like to thank you all for joining us. This is always a good time of the year for us, and we'd like to start out by saying that we have an exciting website that we want to ask all of you all to go and visit us at this website. And with the visit to the website, we want you to know that we're going to be Google appropriate with the new Google guidelines. I know I messed that one up loud, but I tried. But knowing that, we want to say, please pay close attention to our two journal publications. We have Jane and we have MMJ as our two premier journals. And speaking of MMJ, we have a special issue coming out for MMJ. It's a special issue on sports. We'd like to have Tim Orange say a few things about that. Come on, Tim, say a few things about that.
A big thank you to everybody who has submitted some great applications for the special section on sports marketing. Had some great submissions, and thanks also for those of you who are reviewing papers. I really appreciate all the cooperation. Our next one is going to be on the marketing of nonprofits. So if you have anything started or would like to get something started, the marketing of nonprofits will be our next one, and papers will be due beginning of March. So thanks again to everybody for all your cooperation with it. We have a great special session coming up this year. Thank you.
It's March of next year. It's March 2016.
Yeah.
All right, we got you there, Tim. No problem. No problem there. We'd like to thank you. We have a number of students with us, and the students are an important part of the Marketing Management Association. And if we could have all the students stand so we can recognize you and show that we really appreciate you participating. So can I have students stand up? Thank you. We appreciate you participating. Thanks. Also, I'd be remiss without acknowledging and welcoming our past presidents. So if you're a past MMA president, please stand. If you're a past or if you're an MMA fellow, please stand. And without these individuals, we wouldn't be able to be here today. And we want to thank them for their continued support and welcome them back. And to show our appreciation. So thank you all. I've been up here too long already. And Brian and the whole committee put together a great program for us today. And without further ado, we have an individual that I've been using this textbook for such a long time. I didn't want to tell him how long I've been using real people, but it's been a
not long enough.
I will tell you, it's a great honor to have a guest like him with us today. So I'll bring Brian up and get out of your way. But thanks for joining us, and we appreciate your participation. Thank you, Brian.
Going the right way with it? I want to do it. That's just as well.
Right.
Just to No, I wasn't ready. Yes, as Roscoe had mentioned, at the spring conference, we had the opportunity to recognize someone who's made a significant impact in the discipline of marketing and marketing education. And this year we have the privilege of honoring Michael Solomon. I have a formal introduction for him, but then I also want to share a few personal words. So Michael Solomon received his PhD in social psychology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He is professor of marketing and director of the Center for Consumer Research and the Hobbs School of Business at St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. He began his career as an assistant professor at New York University, where he also served as associate director of the Institute of Retail Management. He also was chairman of the marketing department at Rutgers University, and more recently, the human sciences professor of consumer behavior at Auburn University. He also recently concluded an appointment as professor of consumer behavior at the Manchester School of Business in the UK. Michael is at the forefront of marketing thought that emphasizes the strategic importance of understanding how products and services ranging from clothing to credit cards are actually experienced by people who buy them. He has published research on such topics as consumer behavior, fashion psychology, branding, retailing, and emerging technology platforms in numerous academic journals, including the Journal of Consumer Research, Journal of Marketing, Journal of Advertising, Journal of Retailing, and Journal of Business Research. His recent article, Extending the Extended Self in a Digital World with Jag Sheth in the Journal of Marketing Theory and Practice, just won the 2014 Best Paper of the Year award. Michael is also author of several leading textbooks, including Marketing, Real People, Real Choices, a Principles of Marketing textbook now in its 8th edition. His textbook, Consumer Behavior, Buying, Having, and Being, now published in its 11th edition by Pearson Education, is the most widely used book on the subject in the world. In addition, he is a co-author of the first textbook on social media marketing, recently published in 2nd edition by Sage. Michael is one of the most accomplished scholars, but he's also one of the friendliest people you know. So I knew him online for many years and finally met in person. And it's great to chat with him, and he'll tell you about his kids that live out of state that aren't in their home, or his wife that's now visiting their kids instead of at home. Anytime you send an email, instant response. Anytime you have a question, he's there to help you. He's one of those individuals that serves as a mentor to so many people. And so it's a privilege for me to be able to have him here with us here at MMA. So he's going to share some words with us and talk about 15 or 20 minutes. And then he has a different presentation prepared if those of you would like to follow up as in a session later today. So for the first one, I'll also introduce Michael Solomon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and Roscoe, thank you for your good judgment. And thanks to all of you. This is a wonderful honor for me, and I'm really thrilled to be here. I'll be even more thrilled if my PowerPoints come up. But, I have to tell you that there's a bit of, on a personal note, there's kind of a bit of, I don't know, nostalgic, sentimental value to being here at the Palmer House, because and I was sitting in that wonderful lobby before. If you haven't noticed, you should look at the ceiling, by the way. I was, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Because I realized that the very first marketing conference I ever attended as a faculty member was here at the Palmer House. I think I was all of maybe 23 years old at the time. So as you can imagine, the Palmer House had just opened its doors at that time. We're still putting up some of that stuff on the ceiling, but you know, it's been a long, strange trip, as Jerry Garcia would say.
Did your remote end up working, or should we?
Well, let's
out?
see. We will find out. So anyway, as Brian said, he has asked me to share a few thoughts with you right now about the future of marketing education, which I'm happy to do. And then this afternoon, he said, well, would you like also to have the opportunity to talk about research? And do any of you know an academic who would say no if being asked to talk about their research? So I'm happy to do that. And so I'll do that later for those of you that are masochistic enough to want to voice it. But what I want to do now is kind of put on my marketing educator hat. Everybody here is a marketing educator. And obviously when when I'm asked to think about marketing education, first of all, I hope that's not an oxymoron, you know, like Army intelligence or something. You know, nowadays there's a lot of conflicts and turmoil going on in terms of what is marketing education, what should we be doing. And part of that conversation is the textbook, which is something that I know fairly well, since I published my very first textbook. I hate to say it, I believe it was 1991. And if you're keeping track, that was the last century. So some of you guys with purple hair, you probably read about that century. I highly recommend it. It was a good century, what I can remember of it. But you know, we have a lot of conversation now about, you know, do we still have a need for a textbook? What should the textbook look like? So I thought I would just take a few minutes to talk about what I think of as the future of the textbook. And you might guess that I think the answer here is no. I don't think that the textbook is obsolete. Now, I have a vested interest because I like to write textbooks, which makes me masochistic as well. But obviously, we have to change with the times. So the first thing we have to do is we have to deal with a reality that looks like this. We all deal with this reality. So here we have young people that are, you know, basically walking around. It's fun to watch people in the lobby all walking around like this, you know. So here, if you can, I know the lights are kind of bright, but you know, here you've got this. We used to do this back actually in the last century, but well, I've been married for 35 years, but I think I used to do it. But you know, we didn't have this, right? We didn't have this kind of phenomenon here, where you know, the guy's all he can do is stare at his phone even during a moment like this. So you know, we have to kind of live with that reality, and you know, we can fight against it, but you know, it's getting harder and harder for me every year because, like many of you, you know, I go up in front of the classroom every September, and I'm a year older, and they're not. So, you know, I have to say, well, you know, you're either on the train or under it. We're either gonna push back against this digital reality, or we're gonna do our best to embrace it, hopefully tease out the good parts of it, because there aren't many good parts of it, and deal with the rest. So we have to deal with the reality that our students today, most of them are digital natives. You all have seen this term before. These are kids that have literally, you know, come from the womb probably holding a smartphone in their hand, and that basically is their reality. So to us dinosaurs, you know, we might embrace social media, we might embrace smartphones, but we're always aware that we're using them. You know, we're always conscious of the fact that we're either online or offline. And I'm going to talk more about that in the presentation this afternoon in terms of what that means for consumer behavior. But in terms of what it means for us as marketing educators and how do we structure time in the classroom and out of the classroom, that's what I want to focus on now. So how many of you confront this, you know? You're running into class and it looks like you're in an Apple advertisement. And you're staring out at the sea of faces and they're all, you know, they've all got their laptops open. I hate to tell you, I don't allow laptops in my class unless I'm using them for something. That's why I have tenure, because I can piss off the students. Do that. But you know, this is the reality that we face. And by the way, when you go into the corporate world, because you know these kids are learning from us that it's okay to do this, then we go into business meetings in the corporate world, and everybody's looking at their phones as well. So it certainly doesn't end after they graduate, you know. So we have a lot of conversation about the flipped classroom. Everybody in here is talking about the flipped classroom, and the notion being that what we want to do now is to basically offload as much of the learning as we can, let's say prior to the lecture time, so that if we're still going to have a traditional lecture, we don't want it to be somebody like me standing up here doing just what I'm doing now, which is clicking my PowerPoints and so on. We want to try to structure that activity so that students are engaged more and hopefully taking advantage of the fact that they're immersed in social media 24/7. So again, you know, we're starting to see what's almost really become a cliche. You know, we've heard this thing that we can no longer be the sage on the stage. And when I looked at this picture, you know, I was looking at this earlier today, and I realized, you know, it's so typical that I now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about rewards and gamification a a little later. And one of the things that I've done in my principles of marketing class is that I give them extra credit if they sit in the front row, and it's worked beautifully. Suddenly I have a full front row. The second row is totally empty. The front row is full, and and I have kids in the third, fourth row, and I'm thinking, are you not realizing if you move up 2 bloody rows, you get extra credit? Would you rather sit in the 5th row and get no credit? Well, okay, that happens. But at least I've got kids in the first row now. So we have to move from being a sage on the stage to being the so-called guide on the side. And we have to embrace that more collaborative model where we're now teaming with the students. Hopefully the coach knows a little more than the players still. I think that we do. But maybe the way we have to think about it has to change a bit, so that we're no longer just pontificating up on the stage. We are creating experiences in the classroom that are a bit more collaborative, a bit more immersive. As Brian mentioned, one of my books, I had the opportunity to write with Tracy Tootin, the first textbook on social media marketing, which really helped to organize my thoughts about the way that we need to think about social media, which is from a strategic perspective, not what's the latest cool platform, but what is it we're trying to accomplish with social media. And so what Tracy and I did was we organized all of the world of social media, which changes every day, into these 4 zones. And my point in showing this slide, which is the organizing framework for our book, is that one of the major zones of social media, we think probably the most important zone going down the road, is what we call social entertainment. And what's going on in that zone is you've got a lot of game playing, you've got a lot of group interaction. You all know this, where students are, or not just students, everybody is immersed in social media for the purpose of stimulation, having fun, and hopefully in the process maybe actually learning something. So I think we all have to think, and I'm sure I could learn many lessons from you all, about how to make that classroom experience, if we're successful in flipping the classroom, to be not only productive and educational, but also stimulating and fun, because I don't think that those are antithetical things. We assume that if it's productive, it has to be serious. I really don't think that's the case, and I know that my students don't think that's the case. So there's, again, a lot of talk about, well, how do we now impose a textbook into that experience? Because after all, we don't want students just reading all this boring content and regurgitating key terms and so on. So there's a tremendous amount of conversation, I'm sure you all have it all the time, about how can we now modify the textbook, or do we eliminate the textbook? Do we just rely on being a guide on the side and tell the students, you know what, you don't need to read anything other than Wikipedia, which you're going to read when you write your term papers. We also have the rise of other new models that are coming out, like MOOCs. Everybody in this room, I'm sure, knows very well what a MOOC is. MOOCs are very exciting. They're kind of receding right now. I mean, there's kind of a reality check, but that's a natural part of any kind of innovation. I don't think they're going away anytime soon. And certainly the model where we are offering content maybe beyond the physical walls, and we're changing the way that students interact with this, both at the 2-year school level and the 4-year school level, that's not going to change. And so to many of us, quite honestly, this is very threatening, right? Because what it means is that if somebody else at another school does a better job of teaching intro to accounting or principles of marketing or whatever, they're not going to need me anymore, Now that's pretty scary to us as a profession. So, and it's certainly scary to textbook authors, because people are saying, well, if we have MOOCs, then, people are just posting their own stuff online somewhere in another school somewhere, and now thousands and thousands of students are going to access that. So is that the case? And this is the kind of thing that makes me a little nuts, and I'm going to be honest with you. This is, again, I'm a little biased because, I write textbooks. I use by the way, I use my own textbooks in my classes, which is pretty nerdy. I don't take any royalties on those, however. But we do have this attitude when I talk to colleagues. I've heard this before. You know, I can just post my lecture notes and save my students a fortune. They'll love me. And after all, we don't want to get our students angry at us. We want those great student evaluations. And so if I make the student buy, you know, spend money for a book, then they're going to be angry at me, and that's going to be reflected in my evaluations. So look, textbooks are expensive. There's no question about it. I put 3 kids through college. I had to buy their textbooks. I had one kid who used one of my books, as it turned out. I even had to buy that. Where is the justice? At least I didn't have to buy a competitor's book. I don't know if I would have done that. But you know, I get it. I get it. But you know, there are a lot of things that are expensive. Publishers need to work on that, and believe me, they're as concerned as you guys are about the cost of textbooks. Nobody wants to be outpacing the market on these things. But I would submit to you that this is not satisfactory. In most cases, it is not the same thing. Just take your notes, post them online, and think that your students are getting the same experience. And I'd like to tell you why. There's no such thing as a free lunch. I hate to tell you this. Write this down. The students that are here, write this. There's no such thing as a free lunch. It looks too good to be true, but it obviously is. In other words, I understand we want to save our students money, but what is the cost of that? What is the cost of that? Because by sacrificing the quality of a textbook, I think as someone who has to teach students as well, I think we're giving up quite a lot. You know, if you remember The Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. In other words, the magic is just going to happen. Don't worry about how it gets done. I'll just put my notes up there, or I'll just, you know, send them to a website somewhere, and the magic will happen. But the reality is there is a guy behind the curtain. Me and other authors like me, my competitors who have worked just as hard as I do, who are making this stuff happen. And what I find is that a lot of my colleagues, you know, will say to me, "Oh, it must be really hard work to write a textbook." That's nice, you know. But the reality is it is hard work, and it's hard work for a reason, because there's a lot of things that go on behind the curtain that some people are not necessarily aware of. So what's behind the curtain of a real textbook? I don't know how many of you have thought of this. You take it for granted when you get one of these big shiny books to look at. What has gone on behind the curtain in order to create that? Well, there's lots of things that hopefully still matter to us as scholars, and that we want to, the values that we want to impart to our students to teach them. They may not become scholars, some of them will, but we want to impart certain values that I think are not obsolete or outmoded even in a digital native age. One of those is little things like reference verification. In other words, including references, looking at the literature, looking at it critically, and going through a similar process as you might do to get your stuff published. When you submit to a journal as a textbook author, you're going to rely on those reviewers and those journals to vet a lot of that content, and of course you have to use your own judgment to some extent, but you're not just putting anything out there that happens to be on Wikipedia. I mean, I'll know that it's time for me to hang up my shoes when I cite a reference from Wikipedia in a textbook, because then I'm doing the same thing that I get angry at my students for doing. All of the great illustrations that are there, you know, all of the quotes from blogs, you know, or the cool advertisements that you love to show in class, there are still legalities about that. Even though in this world, you know, we download everything and just use it for free. If you're using this stuff, there are legal restrictions on that. There are copyrights to be cleared. The publisher and the authors need to do that, and that costs money to do. You can't just grab things and use them. That is not the case. Copy editing and proofreading. Oh my God, how many times do I have to look at the same chapter? Because the copy editors are doing what they need to do, which is sending it back to me and saying, you know, rewrite this and do that, and your grammar's wrong here. And of course, I'm never wrong. They're just, you know, they're just suggesting that I might change. But there's a tremendous amount of that goes on, so that what your students are seeing is something that's gone through a process, just like you would like your own work to go through a process before it gets published. That takes time and money. The pedagogy that goes into it. right? All of the suggestions for how to teach this stuff, discussion questions, student activities, etc. That has to come from somewhere. People come up with that stuff. That's not just coming out of lecture notes. All those wonderful integrated supplements people love to use, you know? Oh, how come there aren't 100 videos that go with this book? Well, you told us you wanted a cheap book. Yeah, but I want the cheap book with 100 videos that go with it, you know? That stuff is great stuff, you know? All of these things, and especially now with the online platforms that my publisher and other publishers have, that stuff costs a lot of money. It's very valuable pedagogically, but it's not just the man behind the curtain who says, poof, it's there, okay? Comprehensive literature review. So someone who's taking the time to go through many, many different studies, trade articles, and so on, and editing those. In other words, trying to exercise some judgment in terms of which of those should be put in front of the student. I can assure you, and many of you have tried to do this, it's much more difficult to take a complex subject and write about it in one paragraph than it is in 10 pages. So somebody has got to do all that. Peer reviews. You think it's difficult getting an article published in a journal? I always like to walk around conferences. I did this one time. I took a name tag and I wrote Reviewer B on it. I walked around until too many people said, "Oh, you're Reviewer B," you know. But peer reviews, oh my God! I mean, I probably get 10 or 20 peer reviews on a chapter in some cases, and I've got to respond to those reviews. So I've got my peers looking at this stuff, and I welcome that feedback. I welcome that feedback. But that's something that just posting your lecture notes is not going to accomplish. In many cases, student testing. So before your students have seen it, the publisher is putting it in front of other students to make sure that it's comprehensible, that it's at the appropriate reading level, all of those things. So content is king, okay? And you can't just go out to Wikipedia and educate your students. So my point is that I don't expect you to feel sorry for me because I'm a textbook author. My wife feels sorry. You know. But I want you to recognize that content is king, and no matter whether we have new ways to download information, that content has got to come from somewhere, and there's got to be people behind the scenes, and believe me, it's more than the author, it's the editors and the development people and the artists, all of these people working behind the scenes. Now, can they do it less expensively? Perhaps they can. I'll let the publishers answer that question. But it is not free, and the question that comes down to you as educators now, to all of us, is there value added in going from that raw material to now taking the content and doing all these things to it, to maximizing the value that you give to your students? So that's the question everybody needs to answer if we're going to know whether or not the textbook is in fact obsolete. So to give you a few specifics, and I'm going to give you a warning here. I may plug a textbook. I mean, this is not the place for me to mention Consumer Behavior, which is published by Pearson, or it's not the place for me to mention Marketing Real People, Real Choices, published by Pearson, or Social Media Marketing, published by Sage, now in its second edition, recently published. This is not the place for me to say anymore. So I'm not going to say any of that stuff, but I just want to give you a few examples, and obviously I'm going to use it for my own frame of reference. So I hope you'll bear with me on this. If you were to use this book, for example, which I happen to be an author on, this 8th edition recently published, there's a lot of stuff going on in there, and I use this in my own class, as you might guess. In order to flip the classroom, I'll tell you, one of the things that I do is that Pearson has, and the other publishers have somewhat similar platforms. Pearson has now given me the ability to say to my students, you have to read the chapter. Listen to this. You have to read the chapter before you come to class and take a quiz on it and pass it. And that quiz is going to close a half hour before class. That has changed my life. A few years ago, I decided I'm never teaching principles of marketing again. I got what's left of my hair is too gray. I can't do it anymore because I walk into class, I would start to talk about something that's in the chapter, and they look at me like I'm from Mars. Yeah. I'm used to getting that look, but again, from my wife, you know, not from my students. And what I realized was they are not actually reading any of the material. So this way, at least I know when I walk in, I can try to flip the classroom, because I don't have to actually regurgitate what's in the book. So that's a really valuable experience. And the beauty of it is those quizzes and so on now feed directly into my grade book. So that I don't have to grade those quizzes, but I can look very quickly at my grade book on Blackboard, and I can see that, you know, these students are taking the quizzes and they're passing them. If they don't, if they get things wrong, the software tells them where in the book they need to do it, and then they can take the quiz again. So they're self-educating in that sense. It's very, very helpful. I recommend it. That frees me up in class now to use, for example, simulations. So again, all the publishers, I think, have probably simulations that are similar to this. If you went into my marketing lab, you might see a simulation where the students are given a real problem, and they have to go through a series of decisions. And for each decision, they have to choose an option that branches now and brings them to another decision, and then they go through this process. Many professors assign these out of class. I actually use them in class. I use them as a way to involve the students because I no longer have to regurgitate the key terms. I might actually have them go through, and we will decide as a group which option would be the best, and we talk about it. That's a way to talk about the content. Well, why did you pick that option? You know, defend your choice. And then when you go through and make those choices, you're doing it, it's not us versus them, it's all of us are going to now make that choice, and at the end of the day, we're going to see what happens. And one of the things that I do, and this is very crude, some of you I'm sure use Poll Everywhere or something like that. What I'll do is, before I register the choice in the simulation, I'll say, take out your phones, because I know you're looking at them anyway, take out your phones and vote on which option you think is the best. And whoever wins that election, you know, that's the option that I put in there. So the students love that because they are all having the opportunity to see what the other students are picking and so on. And it's a great way to use that as a springboard now to talk about those options in class. And I might say, oh, somebody who chose, you know, option 1, only 3 people chose it, let's say. Somebody who chose that, why did you choose that? And they have to defend their position. So it's very valuable. The technology is getting much better. This is actually called Learning Catalytics. This is a Pearson product that they're just introducing, and it's amazing. Have any of you seen this demo yet? Learning Catalytics, really unbelievable, because what you can do is, for example, you can have students, if you're expressing some kind of a mathematical relationship like supply and demand or something, you can have students actually draw the graph on their phone and submit it, and they can look and see what all the other students have drawn, if everybody got the relationship correctly. So each of these lines here is actually a line that one individual student has submitted. So they can submit word clouds, you know, they can submit multiple choice, anything, and that gives you feedback as it goes through the class. It's very, very powerful stuff. Another tool that I recommend, this is not a Pearson tool, this is a company called Socrative. I use this in my class a lot. And check them out, because what they allow you to do is to create on the fly very quick quizzes in class. And so I'll give a pop quiz, and I'll talk about something for 5 minutes. Then it's a pop quiz comes up on the screen. They have to take out their phones. They have to answer a quick question, which I have just talked about. And it's a way for me to take attendance, which I don't normally do, but I get a spreadsheet that tells me all the students' names who have answered the question, and then I know which one's got it right. So I use the first part as a proxy for attendance. I use the second part as extra credit. So it's not punitive, but if they actually got the question right, which if they have half the pulse, they should, they're getting extra credit for that. So the students absolutely love that. So you might want to look at that. And then quickly, gamification. How many of you know the term gamification? Okay, so, and I'm going to talk more about this afternoon, and for those of you that are interested. Gamification basically means applying the principles of game design to non-gaming contexts, and education is a prime candidate for this. So we're seeing this, you might be aware, maybe your colleges do this. A lot of companies now are having internal competitions where you have different offices that are competing, say, to lose weight or, you know, do things that are healthy, kind of like The Biggest Loser. And then they get rewards for this. That's an example of gamification at the corporate level. Very, very popular right now. A lot of games have some kind of a leaderboard where there's a competitive element that's introduced. So the student or the participant not only knows how they're doing, but they can benchmark that relative to how the other students in the class are doing. So that's often a very interesting motivator to you. Now, you may not want to identify them by name, the other students, but it's a good way to let students know, here's where you stand in the class. So you got the answer wrong, but don't worry, because 90% of the other students got it wrong, and that tells me we have to go back and address that question, for example. Another element of gamification is badges, giving out some kind of marker of achievement. Just like in the old days, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts would wear those literally badges on their sashes. That's all that a lot of gamification is. But those badges now can be used, I think, in our courses as a way to reward students as they make their way through the course, rather than just that grade they get at the end of the course. So if you're not doing that already, think about what kind of badges you can award to your students as they master different modules or chapters going through the course. This is something for those of you that are more adventurous. Does everybody know what a virtual world is? Like Second Life? I'm going to talk about those a little this afternoon. This is something I played with in my principal's class. There's a site you can go to called Plotagon. It's very crude, but if you have some time, you want to have some fun with this, you can basically create an avatar and write your own movie. In other words, you can write in a script in the avatar, and you can tell the avatar, now you're going to stand up, you're going to walk to the other side of the room, you can script their movements and their text, and they will say your words. So this is an excerpt from a challenge that I gave to my students in class, where she's presenting a challenge. She's a Latina woman in Philadelphia, and this has to do with food deserts and how can we distribute food to healthy food to people who live in impoverished areas. And so rather than me presenting the challenge, there's this avatar there presenting the challenge. So it's kind of fun to play around with, because this stuff is going to get more and more popular as the technology gets better. Augmented reality. How many of you know augmented reality? Okay. So augmented reality essentially is what happens when you take physical content like a textbook, a printed word in a textbook, and overlay that with a digital component, so that, for example, when you put your phone on top of the print content, it will bring up dynamic content. That, I think, will be the future of a lot of textbooks, so that we're not just stuck to the printed page. For example, what you're seeing here, it's a little hard to make out, but this is a catalog for a shoe store in Canada. And when you put your phone over the static catalog, you can actually see the entire inventory of the store, and the shoes will move around and so on. This is actually a little teaser. I think I teach marketing. This afternoon, I'll show, for those of you that come to my session, I have some live demos of augmented reality that I think you'll really enjoy. But if you're not aware of this stuff, it's very, very interesting. So at the end of the day, this is all we want, right? We're certainly not in it for the money, God knows, but we want our students to say, "Well done, teacher." And I think we're going to do it not by throwing out the textbook, but by using the textbook and all the stuff that goes with it, and understanding that there is value to that, I hope. So thank you very much, and thanks again for this wonderful honor.
Michael, on behalf of the MMA, we're proud to present to you the 2015 Marketing Innovator Award.
Thank you so much.
Now let's get my PowerPoint.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
This work? Okay. So next, I'd like to welcome Lyle and Ben to come up to talk about our. I'll just let you do it. So.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Glad to see you all come for the lunch and to be here. It's my pleasure for the last couple of years to host the Hormel Master Teacher Competition. And we had 3 really great finalists. So I'd like to invite the 3 finalists to come on up to the stage. We had Liz Wang was one of the finalists. We had Sanjay Mehta and John McGrath. Now, the award for the competition, besides getting some wonderful recognition, some wonderful plaques, and a lot of great things to be able to put on your resume and to sort of be plugged in, because it's always great. And a lot of times, I don't know what it is like in all of your institutions, but I know that in our university, the sort of the normal process of the way things sort of work is you get a award within your faculty, and then you typically need to have some sort of external recognition of your teaching, and then that sort of puts you into the element where you're then able to sort of submit to the university level awards and then start to go on the broader basis of the awards. And so, this is one of the things where this is able to sort of help sort of springboard that to the next case. The other aspect is that this award doesn't just come with the prestige and the recognition, but because of the generosity of Hormel, it also comes with some financial remuneration. So the winner ends up with a $500 cash award, and both of the remaining finalists end up with a $100 cash award that comes with it. So nobody ever leaves empty-handed once they get to this stage. So we're not just going to bring you up to the front and embarrass you and give you a plaque and sort of send you on home. So yeah, you got to get a little bit of a level of recognition and that comes out of there. So what I'd like to do is to pass things over to the representative from Hormel. So Ben, if you just want to come over and make the announcements.
Well, our winner of the Master Teacher Award is Liz Wang.
The right one, eh? Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. So congratulations also.
Thank you.
All right, so there are sheets that are on your tables. If any of you want to sort of start thinking about putting your applications together for next year, the website will be updated with the details, but we did have the handout sheet. I'll have the website updated by tomorrow with the details on that, seeing as it's only a year away, so we got to start thinking about things. All right, so thank you very much.
Next, we will award our competitive track paper award winners. There are 7 tracks, and so as you're announced, you can just talk about it first, and then I'll. Okay. All right. So now let me also mention that these tracks have some of the names associated with them. And I'll just be honest with you, say I'm not sure the history of them. So my challenge to Pam, who's the conference chair next year, is to get the history of why the award was, who it was named for, and so that we can get that detail next spring. But the winner, there you are, there's your challenge. So probably Judy or Michelle or some other people who have some good institutional memory can share the details. But the winner for the Donald Shaver Best Paper in Branding, Strategy, and Retail Award winner is Ugur Yavas. All right, for the Firuz Hekmat Best Paper in Consumer Behavior Award, Yoonji Cho.
Can I say that Bruce Heckman is a longtime member of this organization, and he taught at Southeast Missouri State. His focus area was consumer behavior. So he passed away a few years ago.
And you'll send that to me in an email, right?
So for the Paul Arney Best Paper in Cross-Cultural Ethics and Social Responsibility, award winners are Sherry Chen and Lorette Dubé. The John Barris Best Paper in Marketing Education Award winners are Rebecca Dingus and Alex Novick.
Thank you very much.
And our next award is for the Outstanding Paper and Promotions and Digital Marketing track for Layla Sami and Keisha Coker. All right, our next award is for the Paul Arney Best Paper in Services, Sales, and Retailing Awards for Lucy Matthews, Alex Zabla, and Joseph Hare. Next award is for Sports, Events, and Recreation Marketing track, and the Best Paper award goes to Hulda Black. And then our next award is for a paper that's outstanding amongst all the tracks, and the group of authors will be recognized as well later today at the MBAA session. But for the outstanding paper for McGraw-Hill Best Paper of our conference goes to Scott Swanson, Lujin Su, and
Give it a shot, Brian.
there we are. Whatever Scott says. Okay, we'd also like to recognize our track chairs who put in their time organizing the reviewers, having the process go through, accommodating papers, and working with me to get the whole program put together. So for each of them that are here, we'd like to have them come up as we recognize them. So the track chair for Branding Strategy Research was Zina Turan. So she's not behind the pillar then, right? Okay, that's what I was doing. Okay, she's here, but we'll just tell her. All right, for consumer behavior, Hector Lozada. Next one for cross-cultural ethics and corporate social responsibility, Elena Karsakian. For marketing education, Susan Geringer. For promotions and digital marketing, Michael Messina. All right, for services, sales, and retailing, Keisha Coker. For sports, recreation, and event marketing, I know David Fleming wasn't able to come today, but it was David Fleming. Thank you. Can I take it for him?
Yeah. Thanks.
And then also we want to, well, he didn't read too. So there's Zena, come here.
What did I do?
This is what you did. Thank you for being a time share.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'd like to recognize Lyle Wedge, who also then served as the coordinator for the Hormel Foods Master Teaching Competition. Before we move on to our next set of recognition, we want to mention that if you are interested in serving as a track chair, as a reviewer, a session chair, let the conference program person know so that they can put it together with your help. This conference only happens with the help of everyone getting involved. So if you're interested or you're not sure, take a chance, step out, and help us work together. Another aspect of the organization that makes it work is our officers, and it's an honor to work with a great group of people who spend many hours in dedication, planning, executing, and help moving the organization forward. And so we'd like to recognize each of them individually. So the first one is our Communications Director, Lyle Wench. Congratulations, thank you. So first, Michelle, just come on up. Just come on. As Michelle Coons has put in many years in the organization. She was selected as the MMA Fellow last year. She has worked 5 years as our Executive Director, 6 years as Executive Director, and this is her, stay here. This is, she's finishing her term. Alex Milovic has been nominated and elected as the next Executive Director, so after this week, Michelle finishes, so a super thank you to you.
Thank you.
Yes, Susan, you're next. Susan has also put many years in the organization of service. She served as a treasurer for
1 year before Michelle.
all right, 7 years. And Susan's also finishing her term at the end of this conference. And we're happy to announce that Brent Smith will take over as treasurer. But Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, our next, Roscoe Hightower. Roscoe gets a special award. For those of you who know Roscoe, he's always has a positive attitude, jovial, tells you funny stories. I walked into a conversation, and the end of it I heard was when I was wearing a pink, what was it? Pink outfit and pink wig and
In drag.
drag outfit, yeah. So I just said, I don't know about that, but thanks, Roscoe. So, so I think you're supposed to say
Say something else.
Well, with the brighter side, we'd like to say thank you to Brian for putting together a spectacular spring conference. And those of you that know Brian know that he's very intense and a very hard worker. So we're excited, and thank you for doing a great job.
There's a good chance I don't have a slide for Pam, so I'm just gonna ask Pam to come up and see if I'm here. Very good. Yes, Pam Hensel has served the year as our Vice President of Marketing, and she will be the next President-elect and Program Chair for next spring. So thank you, Pam, for all your work. And I'll call up our immediate past President.
Happiest person in the room.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
And while Carrie is here, she is going to present our next award.
Yes. It is my pleasure to introduce the MMA Fellow for 2015. Since 1995, the Marketing Management Association has recognized at least one member of the organization for her or his service and dedication to the group, naming the member as Fellow of the Marketing Management Association. Happily, this is often a very difficult decision for us to make, the nominating committee to make, because MMA is known for its collegial and active membership. So when a fellow is chosen, it is clearly someone who's committed to the good of the membership over the long term. The fellow for 2015 has served ably on both Publication Council and the Board of Directors, with an eye for the organization's best interests and efficiency. Two things that don't always go hand in hand in a room full of academics. A conscientious steward of MMA's resources and talents, this MMA member is known for asking the so what questions and the can we move it along questions when said members' colleagues have a tendency of getting off track or tripping down the rabbit hole. More than once, this person can be heard at meetings saying, can we vote? You might be familiar with his long service in shepherding and chairing the Hormel Master Teacher Competition, assisting Marketing Management Association in keeping true to its roots and core competency of fostering marketing education. Therefore, it is my pleasure to introduce to the membership the 2015 Fellow to the Marketing Management Association, Tim Grave.
Yeah.
Carrie,
There, you gave me
you
your
just gave him your award.
Oh, I did.
Can we vote on it? Congratulations, Tim. That's wonderful. Well, moving forward, we're at our MMA Fall Educators Conference. The conference chair is Don Edmonston. The program chair is Debbie DeLong. Neither were able to come to the conference. I said I would share a few words on their behalf. All of this is on the MMA website, which is mmaglobal.org. You can see the hotel we're staying. You can already make online reservations. That's been open for a while. The registration to attend the conference will open up shortly. We don't want to confuse it with the spring, so that's why we wait till this one's over before we open online registration. It is a $170 registration fee. It includes your meals while you're there. You can see there is a teaching innovation competition that also comes with cash reward. There's a doctoral student competition. There's doctoral student teaching consortium, a couple of which here have been before, pre-conference workshops that happen on the Wednesday morning. And the deadline for submissions that goes with call for papers is May 22nd, 2015. And if you would like, if you don't know Debbie Don personally and you want to make an inquiry, this is the email that goes to them, or to make a submission. But that's all on the website where you can find the call for papers for the fall conference. So in case you're not familiar, the difference between the fall and the spring has a number of research tracks that you saw. The fall conference is strictly focused on marketing education. So all the sessions you'll find there, panels, position papers, and referee papers, are all focused on effectiveness in teaching marketing or related areas. And then our conference for next spring.
I'm going to be the chair of the spring conference next year, and I'm happy to report that given the timing of Easter, we were able to push the conference back instead of move it up. So hopefully from April 13th to 15th, when you look at the weather forecast, you won't see little snowflakes. You'll see nice warm weather. And so I encourage you to start thinking about the spring conference. If you're interested in serving as a track chair or in any other capacity, please let me know. We're looking for a few good men and women to help out because that's what makes the conference successful. We'll have more detailed information out during the summer, so be on the lookout for that also. So see you guys next year. We'll see you in Puerto Rico first. But then
So we're going to move into our business meeting portion of our time now. And I've learned a lesson. If I say we have a break, you're not going to come back. So we're going to move right into our business meeting, and it really only takes a short period of time, but it helps to give the members a little bit of an update on how that we're doing overall. And so our current president, Roscoe Hightower, is going to come lead our session.
Oh, no, thank you.
You have that.